Hi, and welcome to another episode of This Is My Architecture. I'm Lester from AWS, and I'm joined by Gheorghe from Accenture. Gheorghe, tell us a little bit about Accenture and about your role in the company.
Happy to be here. I work for Accenture as a security consultant. Accenture is a premier consulting partner with the security competency. My team is a global distributed team, and we are developing vetted cloud security reference architectures, deliverable accelerators, and of course automation scripts to secure customers' workloads.
Super, and so it probably goes without saying that this architecture on the board is security related, and let me get this right, this implements security controls within an AWS account, is that right?
Yes, that is right. As you know, Accenture works with some of the biggest customers in the world, and they usually have hundreds of AWS accounts. So one of the challenges that we've seen was a way to define and implement the security baseline and replicate it across hundreds of AWS accounts. Then we found the CIS benchmark, and actually it was the first set of controls that was developed for a specific cloud service provider issued by the CIS. And we took the benchmark and we scripted it. So now we can go to customer and have everything implemented in a matter of minutes.
Super. And so for those who don't know, CIS is an industry body. Does that have a set of guidelines or guidance for these security controls?
CIS is a non-profit entity that is developing, with the help of the global community, benchmarks and controls that are globally recognized as best practices for securing private and public organizations.
Okay, super. So start by telling us a little bit about what the architecture does. I see you're using CloudTrail up here to capture activity logs for accounts or changes or actions that have been applied to particular resources or something like that. Walk us through the flow a little bit.
Yes, so our architecture relies mostly on three major AWS services. So first of all, we have CloudTrail, which records every API call made in our AWS account. Logs are sent to S3 with log file validation enabled and encrypted with KMS. The S3 bucket is secured by using custom S3 bucket policy, which restricts delete actions and enforces HTTPS connections.
And is there any sort of retention policy placed on those logs going into there? How long do you keep them for? And
yes, of course. As you know, CloudFormation deletes every resource by default. So for compliance purposes, we chose to retain all the S3 buckets. So the bucket containing CloudTrail logs, bucket with config logs, and so on.
Got it, great. Okay, and once the logs are being streamed into S3, how are you utilizing CloudWatch in this context?
Yeah, so logs coming from CloudTrail are going to be integrated with CloudWatch logs. So now we have the possibility to create alarms and event rules and alert the end users on suspicious activities or actions.
So what might some suspicious activity be? Can you give us an example there?
Yes, so first of all, we have CloudWatch alarms. We have very specific filter patterns that look for suspicious activities like console logins without MFA enabled or multiple console login failures. And the alarm will send a message to an SNS topic, which will eventually end up in the user's inbox.
Okay, and so that's going to be sending like an alert email to the security operations team or something like that?
Exactly. And secondly, we have CloudWatch event rules that look based on the same specific event patterns that look for events such as configuration changes. Just to give you an example, someone changes a security group. The event is picked by CloudTrail, sent to CloudWatch. An event will match that configuration change. And it will send the information to a custom Lambda function, which will eventually send the relevant information to the same SNS topic.
Got it, great. Okay, and I see down here you're using AWS Config as another service. Tell us a little bit about how you're utilizing that within the AWS account here.
Right, so config is the third service that we are using. So some of the CIS controls had coverage with AWS config manage rules. That was easy to implement. So this would be managed config rules. But for the remaining controls, we had to implement the evaluation logic using custom Lambda functions. So just to give you an example for managed rules, we have a config rule that evaluates the password policy settings, so password length, uppercase, lowercase, password rotation, and so on. And for custom Lambda functions, one of the first controls in the CIS from the first section, Identity and Access Management, dictates that every IAM user that has a password enabled should have MFA enabled. So whenever the config service records a configuration change for IAM type of resources, the information is sent to a custom Lambda function, which re-evaluates every IAM user and sends back the compliance status to the custom config rule.
Got it. And in terms of any sort of compliance violation or anything like that, the security operations team is going to get notified as well in some way?
For the config service, the plan is to implement an alerting mechanism. So we want to add the SNS alerting to the config service.
Got it. So that's part of future plans. What other things are you looking at implementing in future or changing about the solution?
Yeah, one of the things that we are looking at this moment is to introduce the remediation part. So at this moment, we only report, monitor, and alert the end user. So we probably want to add a remediation step. So for instance, if someone changes the password policy, we want to alert the user, but also to change the password policy back to its original state, as the CIS
Got it. So it's automatic remediation, effectively.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, so the great thing about this as well is that you've made it available as a AWS Quick Start so that others can consume it. Is that right?
Yes, the entire architecture is scripted using CloudFormation language, and we are using the concept of nested scripts. So every different piece is scripted in a different template. So if you want to add your own customizations, you don't have to go through a very large script file.
Super, brilliant. Well, thank you very much for walking us through the solution. It's great to know that others can use it and apply these same rules and policy enforcement into their environments. So thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you.
And thank you for watching another episode of This Is My Architecture.